So there's the two steps of that process. From above Atzilus into Atzilus, and then from Atzilus into Bia. That's what the Rebbe is explaining. We got to the top of page 423. Because we're talking about Sholem. The Torah is Eiseh Sholem. That means it's Eiseh Sholem b'famalia shel Maila. That means bringing a level beyond Atzilus into Atzilus. And it's Eiseh Sholem b'famalia shel Mata, which means connecting Atzilus to Bia. Now, the connection of Atzilus to Bia B'chlal is difficult to understand, and that's what the Rebbe is going to use the idea of Kamayim Panim Al Panim about. How can it possibly be that Elokus unites with Nifra, with created reality? I understand that it can be the source of it, but how can they be one? Because something that has a tziyur, something that has a certain quality, so then by definition, if it comes into contact with something else, the quality of those two things will produce a third thing, right? We talked about that in terms of water as opposed to colored liquids, right? If I mix colored liquids together, or I put red water in a green cup, so it doesn't become green, it becomes a mixture of red and green, it becomes a third color. Whereas if I put water in a green cup, then it becomes green. It takes upon itself the character of the cup, because the water itself is in a state of what we call pshitus, a state of simplicity. It doesn't have its own siyur, its own particular character, and so it can take upon itself the character of that kli that it's in, right? Whereas, again, Coca-Cola in that cup will not be green or black, whatever Coca-Cola is, right? It'll be some third color. Okay. So we're trying to understand, again, two parts of the process. Beyond Atzilus into Atzilus, that's Eiseh Sholem b'famalia shel Maila, and Atzilus into Bia, that's Eiseh Sholem b'famalia shel Mata. That's shaykh to worlds, and it's shaykh also, we're going to see it's going to be shaykh to the nefesh. What brings that about? Torah, because it's beyond all of that. Tehine, b'Bia efshar lachshev, in the worlds below, Bria Yetzira Asiya, created worlds. Efshar lachshav, it's possible to think, this is wrong, but it's possible to think, Asher lav iyu v'chayui v'garmui chad. Atzilus, how do we define Atzilus? Well, we defined Atzilus in the last class as a place where his light and his kelim are all one. And that's what we talked about in Atzilus, right? Atzilus is a place that even the Kli is Elokus. The Kli is not the Kli is Elokus. What was the mashal? The ice cup. Okay. So one might think in Eilamus Bia that that's not the case. Now really that is the case, because Einoid Milvadai and Hashem Echad and all is Him. Hashem Hakol ve'efes Zulasai. There is nothing truly other than Him. There is the relative existence of other things, but not the absolute existence of other things. Not that it's an illusion. Eilam Hazeh is not an illusion. That's not true. That is said in a number of places, but it's not true. Eilam Hazeh is not an illusion. If Eilam Hazeh was an illusion, then you would not be able to be put to death in Beis Din for being Mechal Shabbos, because you could say it was an illusion. You didn't do it. All right? Okay, but you can be put to Beis Din when you're Mechal Shabbos. I'm starting again in the summer. You can be put in Beis Din. You can be killed in Beis Din for being Mechal Shabbos. Okay, that's one of two proofs, whatever, that the Marash uses to discuss to negate the idea that the world is an illusion, because a lot of people like that idea, right? And they get into that idea, and that's not true. Second reason is, it says, Bereshis bar Elokim es hashamayim v'haaretz. The Torah says the Eibshter created heaven and earth. It means there's such a thing called heaven and earth. But it just has no absolute existence. It only has relative existence. So an absolute truth, iyu v'chayu ichad, even here, it's all Elokus. So now, how in the world could created reality express such a thing? It's not the same. Let's see. Especially since it comes from a place called Atzilus, which is a level of Elokus that's contrary to created reality. and as we saw earlier, limited to a certain degree by what it is. So how can Atzilus be the source of the fact that, first, how can it be the source of a nivra b'chalal, because it's boreh, and also how can the oneness of Elokus be revealed in Bia if its source is Atzilus, because Atzilus is limited to the extent that there's a certain simsum of the R, the diminishing of the R into the kalim of Atzilus. Okay? That's it. Right now, this whole discussion is in. Anyways, we said this is why it's hard to go through it quickly because you don't want to not understand anything, but this is all discussed in Ayin Base of the Rebbe Rashab, right? The most famous Maimarium that the Rebbe Rashab said. It's in Tafresh Ayin Hey. It took 4 or 5 years to say them. There's also a Maimer of the Rebbe. I forget the name of Rebbe. Anyway, it's in Tafshin Chaf Hey. There's a Maimer of the Rebbe that deals with this whole thing at great length. The Rebbe is now saying it in half a page. He's taking a whole mimer and saying it in half a page, so it's sort of hard for us to understand all that. So we're going to do our best to get a basic understanding. Dine. But Bia Efshar Lachshev, in the lower worlds, what's possible to think? Asher Lav Iyu V'chayu Garmu Ichad. That it's not all one. Not that there isn't a creator. There's a creator, but there's a very powerful difference between the creator and that which he created. Meaning the Kli is a Kli, and it's not Elokus, but in Eilam Abriya, that Kli is like a Coke bottle, so it allows Elokus to shine through it. But it itself is not Elokus, as opposed to the ice cup, where it's obvious that the ice cup and the water in the ice cup are one and the same thing. Okay, whereas that's not clear at all in Eilam Asbiya. That doesn't mean that godliness is hidden. In Eilam Abriya, it isn't. In Eilam Yitzir, it isn't. In Eilam Hazeh, it is, except to those who have proper eyes, and even there it's not hidden. They'll see Elokus in things. Hine, tzarich lahamshich b'biyah, in order to bring about a revelation, in order for Biyah to exist, and in order for Biyah to be an expression of Iyu v'chayui v'garmu ichad, a state of Achdus like Atzilus, so that means the reality of Atzilus has to be drawn down into Eilamus Biyah. Okay, and that's the ultimate purpose of our Veda. Yes, Peseda, we talk about Dio B'tachtoni v'chuli, but the particulars of it are connecting Atzilus to Bria. That's why we put the Rasha and the Chacham next to each other at the Seder. And the 4 sons started talking about the Chacham, and then the Rasha. The Chacham is Eilam Atzilus, the Rasha is Eilam Asiyah. Right? So we put them right together because they're supposed to affect each other. Ultimately, the Chacham is supposed to affect the Rasha. Hine, tzarich lahamshich b'biyah hamshachad atzilus, shegam b'biyah, that also in the lower worlds, begilu, it will be in a revealed way, asher iyu v'chayu ichad, iyu v'garmu ichad. The unity of HaKadosh Baruch will be revealed in a very serious way. The hine ksiv. Now the pasuk that's the source of all of this. Kemayim panim el panim, kein lev adam el adam. Now that pasuk is usually like water, face to face, so to the heart of a person, to the heart of a person. That pasuk is used in Tanya to explain how if you appreciate the greatness of God and His love for you, that will arouse in you a desire to love Him back. Okay, but this pasuk also helps us understand how creation works. Again, what's Mayim? Mayim is going to be a very lofty level of godliness beyond Eilam Atzilus, Keser, even beyond, where state of absolute pshitus, absolute simplicity, absolute unity, no tziyur, no particular form. Okay, as opposed to leiv ha'adam el adam, well, what's that? Let's see. There's going to be 2 pshatim. The first one's easy. The second one is very, very difficult. We're not going to spend very, very much time on the second one. We're just going to get the general idea of what the Rebbe is, why the Rebbe is bringing this. Hainu, mi adam atachten al adam elyon. From lower Adam to upper Adam. What's Adam? Adam are the spheres. Lower Adam, Hainu, mi bia, that's Adam atachten. Latzilus, Adam Elyon. In other words, there has to be a connection between Atzilus and Olam HaBriya. And that brings about the drawing down of or, of godliness, of energy from Atzilus into Bia. So Bia can be a place where godliness is revealed. Okay, so now, over there, what's the name of the mimer now? In Chafei, so was the Rebbe explain? The reason that Olam Atzilus can affect Olam HaBriya and Olam HaBriya can become a place of revelation is because of Mayim Panim Al Panim. Kamayim Panim Al Panim, because of that reality, so too Lev Adam El Lev Adam. So Atzilus can connect to Olam HaBriya. Now, what does that mean? So this explains the two parts of the process that the Rebbe is explaining. That there has to be a shalom b'famalia shel maila before there's a shalom in famalia shel mata. What did we say? Beyond Atzilus has to connect with Atzilus before Atzilus can affect Olam HaBriya. Because Atzilus mitzad itself is in a state of limitation to the extent that it's worlds. It's a world. What's a world? A place of certain limitation, certain hiddenness. The word olam comes from the root helem, concealment. Right? Because what does the world reveal itself? What does it hide? Well, not really, because Atzilus is a world of godliness. It hides the unlimited aspect of godliness. Right? Because you can't say Atzilus hides godliness. That's not true. Atzilus is elokus. Right? But what does it hide? Unlimited godliness. Right? Oh, okay. So, in order for Atzilus to be that which reveals unlimited godliness, it has to connect to a level beyond it. Then it's able to affect the worlds below it. So that's kamayim panim al panim, just like above. Kamayim panim al panim. What does that talk about? That really is saying in Pnimius, there's something in Atzmus called the Eser Spheres HaGenuzos, the hidden spheres that are not revealed. What does that mean? Everything that exists outside of the Etzem of HaKadosh Baruch Hu must exist inside the Etzem of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right?
You're saying that above Atzilus there's spheres?
Called Spheres HaGenuzos, hidden spheres. Why? Why do we say such a thing? Well, we say such a thing because it's true. Why is there such a thing? Right? Why is there such a thing? Because everything that exists outside of Atzmus must have some existence in Atzmus. Everything, to put it in crass physical terms, everything that exists in you must have some source in your physical etzem, which is called your genetic code. If it's not there, then it's not in you. But it's hidden there. It's not revealed there. There's no blue eyes there. There's no, short fingers or long fingers there. There's just, but I don't know how genetic code works, but I'd imagine the geneticist would look at it and go, oh, this guy's got blue eyes. I assume, I don't know, right? But he certainly can find all sorts of things there, right? Okay, so so to speak, that's the mashal for the idea of the spheres genuzos. The spheres genuzos are the 10 spheres that exist in Atzmus, in a hidden state, like Geniza, you put things away, right? So, what does that mean? That means that the true shurish, the true reality of the Esser spheres of Atzilus is an unlimited state of godly reality. What allows Atzilus to be both a complete expression of Elokus and a complete expression of Elokus ad kedei kach that can actually affect the lower levels and bring about a revelation of Elokus in those lower created levels? Because how in the world can Atzilus have anything to do with created reality? It's completely transcendent. Because it's connected to a level beyond it that's transcendent of it and not limited like it. And what's that? The true source of Atzilus. What's the true source of Atzilus? Spheres HaGenuzos. So kamayim panim al panim, like in the state of pshitus, the state of absolute simplicity that exists above Atzilus, there is a reality of spheres, but those spheres are like putting color in water. what's revealed, the true essence of the thing itself. It's not that it's not affected by the existence of the water, because the water allows the green to shine through completely, right? So that's but that's the pshitus of the levels above Atzilus, and specifically Etzem, where there's the 10 spheres, Genuzos. Right? Okay. So since the 10 spheres of Atzilus are sourced in a level completely beyond any limitation whatsoever, so that's why Leiv Adam El Leiv Adam. That's why Leiv Adam Elyon, and that's why Atzilus can affect Leiv Adam, the Bria.
Could you say that happens because Atzilus does not exist independently?
Okay, that's true, but not only does it not, it definitely doesn't exist independently, because it's all about revelation of Elokus. And revelation is all about the most powerful statement of lack of independence imaginable. When you experience revelation, what you're experiencing is that what I'm seeing does not exist by virtue of itself, but has a source in something higher. That's the nature of revelation. Mm-hmm. So it's true, I see the angel, but I'm not really seeing the angel. I'm seeing the source of Elokus, that's the source of the angel. That's what revelation is. Concealment is where I think the thing is itself. Concealment is where I think the thing has some sort of independent existence. That's called, that's worlds. And I might think this world exists by virtue of itself, which is absolutely not true, but that's definitely my experience of the world. And that's my experience of myself. We learned that in Basi Lagana, Rabbi's first mind. My experience of self is that I exist by virtue of myself. That's not true. That's what I experience. Okay. Where does such an experience come from? Atzmus, the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There is only one thing that ultimately exists by virtue of itself, and that's the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you and I actually experience a certain revelation of Etzem, the Koyach Atzmus. Okay, amazing. But Atzilus, no such thing. There's no Havamina in Atzilus that exists by virtue of itself, of independence. Okay, but what is it? But still, Atzilus unto itself is a state of limited reality to the extent that there's a tzimtzum, there's a constriction of godly light, such that the light expresses itself in differentiation, 10 different spheres. That's Atzilus. So what did we say on the last page? In order for Atzilus to transcend that state such that it can then be the source of elevating the lower worlds beyond their state of being, because again, we learned earlier, if I'm dealing with limitations, a limitation can't truly change something. Only a state completely beyond it can change it. Okay, so Atzilus has to somehow incorporate into itself its true source, which is completely beyond limitation. That allows Atzilus to then, that's like, Atzilus is the like we said, the hinge between completely transcendent godly reality and worlds. But it has to imbue into itself the completely transcendent reality before it can bring about an elevation of the worlds, or else the worlds will simply be limited states of reality. But what are they truly? Godly states of reality. What helps bring that about? Atzilus, which is a godly state, with limitation, shining into the worlds. How can that be? And Atzilus is limited. If Atzilus is connected to its beyond limitations, its source is beyond limitation, then Atzilus can illuminate that which is below it. That's the hinge. That's why we talk about Famali Shel Maila and Famali Shel Mat. It's a two-step process. That's what the Rebbe explained to us on 422. Right now the Rebbe is just explaining with this pasuk. And the Rebbe is saying a whole mimer in half a page, and that's why it's so hard. There's so many pieces missing. I'm trying to fill in a few of the pieces, but I mean, we could go and learn that mimer, but we won't understand it. So why are we going to go learn it, right? So that's the basic idea that's going on over there, right?
Is the idea that by the spheres tapping into the spheres kenuzos, they can then tap into the unlimited, and then they can have a transformation in us in this sphere. Is that what we're saying?
Yes. Basically, yes.
Okay.
Kamayim panim al panim. Just like the spheres have a source in Etzem, so too Leiv Adam El Leiv Adam. So that's why Atzilus, Leiv Adam Elyon, can affect Olam Hazbiyah, Leiv Adam Tachter. Adam is spheres. bottom of the spheres. Okay. Now the Rebbe is going to say something much more difficult in terms of an upward motion. So that's the first parish. That's the parish of Pashut.
Oh, good.
That's the simple one. Hainu mi bia latzila shayideza nasem shacham yatzilus lebia. The lower worlds can be elevated to Atzilus because their true source is the 10 spheres of Atzilus, and that source is connected to its true source in Etzem. And therefore, Atzilus can be drawn down into Bia and affected. The Perish of base, we're just going to read through this very quickly, just different levels of reality, being elevated from one step to another step. Hushua Allah, it's an elevation, Mibechinis Malchus, Lazah, Malchus to Zah, Zah are the 6 meters. Mizah lekeser, from Zah to Keser. Mikeser la'ak, Ak is the world that is the Ratzon Klali for all 4 worlds. Right? Each world has its own Keser, which is the Ratzon for that world, and then there's the Ratzon Klali for all 4 worlds, and that's called Ak, Adam Kadmon. Right? Just like when you build a building, so you have a desire as to what you want the first floor to look like, the second floor, the third floor, and the fourth floor. But there's also a Ratzon Klali, there's a general desire for the whole building. Right? So the general desire for the whole building is a much deeper place in the architect than the specific desire of each floor, because the specific desire of each floor is ultimately there to somehow bring about an expression of the general desire that he has for the whole building. Right? That's in creation, that's called Ak. Ulamaila yes, and even higher than that. The Av Sheshamhu bebechinas Kiloi Adamhu, that even though that's a level of Kiloi Adamhu, it's beyond Adam, completely transcendent of Adam. So therefore, how can it affect Adam in any way, shape, or form? Because it's not Adam, and we said Adam is the 10 spheres. Mikol Mokem, Harigam Sham Yeshnat Shiur. There's still at least some state of form, some state of specific reality, meaning it can be defined on some level. Vayidaber Allah Yatzilus lebechinis l'maylam Yatzilus, through elevating Yatzilus to a level beyond Yatzilus, nasem shacham l'maylam Yatzilus l'ba'atzilus. So then there can be a drawing down of godliness from a higher level into Yatzilus. Okay. Now, what we can go back to in terms of our mimer and understand, because now we're going to see, so how is this connection brought about? Dafka through Torah. Torah is the means for all of this. Torah is that which makes this shalom b'famalia shel maila and b'famalia shel mata. That's what we said Torah is. That's what the pasuk said. Grab onto me, meaning grab onto my Torah, and you'll be able to bring about this state of reality. How do we reveal elokus and elam hazeh? B'bechina shalom. Yes, there's a Vayidaber from below battling the forces of darkness, but there's a much easier way. Just illuminate it all through the incredible power of Torah, which comes from a place beyond even Atzilus, is drawn down into Atzilus and allows for the reality of Atzilus to be revealed in the world. And what is the reality of Atzilus? Actus, unity, the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we'll see that the world is also an expression of that absolute unity. Keli Menor, it's all the same, it's just all Elokus. Hashem HaKol Ve'efazul Hasem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is everything and there's nothing other than Him. It's just all Him. That can also be revealed down here. How? Torah. Now, after the parentheses, Vayidaber Chabros, and by virtue of the joining together, the Lamayla mi Atzilus, that which is beyond Atzilus, im Atzilus, with Atzilus, V'yischarbrus Atzilus im Bia, and therefore that helps bring about the connection of Atzilus to Bria Yitzirasi, as we explained very quickly. Now we've connected a level beyond Atzilus with Eilam as Bia. Atzilus is the hinge, is what's called the Memutza Mechaber, the intermediary that connects a level beyond it to a level below it. That's Atzilus. Like we said, Atzilus is that hinge, connects the door to the wall. Is the hinge part of the door, part of the wall? It's part of both. All of this is brought about through Torah. Why? The But since all of the bringing into being of the worlds was through Torah, Yistakla Baraisa Bara Alman, the Rebbe looked in the Torah and created the world. It's the blueprint of it all. It's the source of it all. Lachein hine al yedei Torah nase hamshachas ha'or. Torah allows for the drawing down of the light, the ultimate purpose of creation, the drawing down of godly light into creation. Learning Torah, Torah in general, but learning Torah. And we're going to see saying the words of Torah, which is why it says, Vayidaber Elokim es kol hadavar me'ela lemor. God said these words so we should say them. And by virtue of saying them, what are we doing? We're drawing down a level of godly light that in a very calm and peaceful way brings about an incredible elevation of the world and revelation of godliness in the world, so that we see that the world is simply the Eibishter. Hashem akel ve'evazulasi. Iyu v'garmu ichad, iyu v'chayu ichad, the light, the kli, it's all the Eibishter. Ningashmi is also the Eibishter. The betchilo nimshachar be'etzilus. First, that level of light is drawn down into etzilus. Shatera hi mamutza, because the Torah is the mamutza, the intermediary bein l'mayla mi'etzilus v'etzilus, between that which is beyond the Tzilus and Atzilus, the Zeu, and this is why it says about the Torah, about the Eibishter, but it's talking about the Torah. Eita erd kesalma, he spreads out his light like a garment. Like the light comes down and spreads itself out. Where? Tzilus. V'achakach nimshach or babiyah. Then it's drawn down into Elamas Biyah. Al yedei bechinas, how? How do we draw it down? Val terascha shelimadatanu, through the Torah that you taught us. Terascha batzilus, the Torah that exists in Atzilus, shelimadatanu babiyah, that you taught us in Biyah. You brought it down to a lower level. So that's in terms of the worlds, how Torah brings about the connection of the transcendent level to immanent levels. What about in the neshama? Kamechein hu gam b'aveda, so to an aveda. The mesim shalom b'famalia shel maila. The Torah brings about peace in the famalia shel maila. What does that mean? Hu amshach b'nefesh elokis. That's connecting the nefesh elokis to its source and atzmus. The nefesh elokis is going to be like Atzilus in this. The nefesh elokis has a source and atzmus. Nefesh elokis that is clothed in your body is basically a nivra. It's like a created thing. Right? Okay, but it has a source in atzmus, a revealed source in atzmus. Okay, so the first level of shalom is to connect the nefesh elokis to its source in atzmus, because the nefesh elokis is mushrosh in atzmus. It's sourced in the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Etzem and neshama is sourced in the etzem of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's even beyond Torah. Right? The Medrash in Tana de Belial. Okay. So first there has to be a level of hamshacha milamayla lamata, umesim shalom b'famalia shel mata. What's that? Hu hamshacha b'nefesh habamis. That's drawing the nefesh elokis into the nefesh habamis. First there has to be hamshacha milamayla into the nefesh elokis. So the nefesh elokis now is completely is expressing its true power, which is unlimited godliness. Then the nefesh elokis can affect the nefesh habamis. And we'll see. If the nefesh elokis isn't connected to its source above, it is connected, but if that connection isn't part of that person's life, so then what? Then the nefesh elokis is weakened, and therefore the possibility of an avera exists, which the Rebbe is going to talk about. Okay. Now I was going to explain that. Because what does it say? That we're created, but salmeinu chid basena. We're created in his image and in his likeness. What's image? Hu nefesh elokis. What's likeness? Deime. It's not it, but it's like it. Nefesh habamis. The nefesh elokis hu tselem. Right? Now I was going to explain this based on the Alter Rebbe and the Kutei Torah. Shatzadi Hu ha-keiches ha-pnimim, those are the inner powers of the soul. V'lamed mem, hu keiches ha-makifim. Now, the Rebbe doesn't explain that at all, right? Just throws it out there. There. So now, if you look at footnote 40, you'll see that it happens to be a mimer of the Alter Rebbe in Parshas Seitzei. So first of all, we have to understand and appreciate the fact that there are keiches panimim and keiches makifim. Okay, so now that is theoretically something that we should know. Okay, but either we do or we don't. What are keiches panimim? Keiches panimim are powers of the soul that are clothed in the body and power the body. In Gashmias, what would that be? There's going to be keiches panimim mitzad the soul itself, which is going to be seichel and midas. Okay, but there's also the in terms of Gashmias, the fact that your body is powered by your soul, so that there's a power of sight in the soul, and that power of sight clothes itself in your eyes, and so you can see. There's a power of speech in the soul, and that power clothes itself in your mouth, so you can speak. There's a power of hearing in the soul, and that clothes itself in the ears, so you can hear. There's a power of intellect in the soul, and that clothes itself in your brain, so you can think.
Those are maki, those are panimi.
Those are panimi. They're inside something. They're specific, inside, limited. The power of sight can only do one thing. It can see. Right? Those are keiches panimi. Inner powers. They are clothed in me. Right? Not inner. Don't think inner means a higher level. Inner means a lower level. Right? Something clothed in me, meaning they're part of conscious me, not super conscious me. Right? Okay. So those powers are called keiches panimim. Right? Eyes don't see. Souls see. Souls use eyes to see. But if there's no soul in the body, the eyes don't see. Right? That person who's buried can't see, can't talk, can't think, can't move. Why? Because those are all powers of the soul that are clothed in the body. Right? And there's certain kelim, so that power would be called the or, the light, the energy, and the kli is the particular vessel in the body, the particular limb in the body that allows for expression of that particular power of the soul. So if the power of sight were clothed in the ears, you couldn't hear or see, because the ears aren't a kli for the power of sight. So if you drink a cup of coffee and you put it on a flat plate, you're not going to get so far. Right? Okay. If you try to eat a steak in a cup, you're also not going to get so far. Okay, so the kli has to be commensurate to that which goes in it. That's keiches panimi. What are keiches makifim? So keiches makifim are the super rational powers of the soul. Right? So now in the powers of the soul relative to our everyday life, that would be ratzon, will. Will is not a conscious power. I become aware of it in my consciousness. Therefore, I might act upon it or not act upon it. But the will itself is coming from a place that's not conscious me. That's why I don't have immediate control over my will. I can't decide I don't want something. I can decide I'm not going to do it or speak about it or think about it, but that I can't not want it. Don't want a cigarette. Well, you can't say that to a cigarette smoker. Don't smoke a cigarette? You can say that. You can't tell them not to want one. Okay. Why? It's not conscious me. It's superconscious or subconscious also, but superconscious me. Okay, so there's powers of the soul that are not clothed in the body and are expressed in every aspect of the body equally. Ratzon. I can express ratzon by speaking, by seeing, by touching, by moving my toe. So I can think a thought of Chassidus or move my toe. Those are both equally expressions of my ratzon. Because there's no higher and lower in ratzon. There is higher and lower in keiches panimi. There's no question that thought is more sophisticated than moving a toe. But the ratzon of them is exactly the same. Tainug is another keich makif. Pleasure. Where do you get pleasure in your body? Oh, you get intellectual pleasure, spiritual pleasure, physical pleasure, emotional pleasure. My feet can give me incredible pleasure. If I've been wearing hiking boots, hiking in the forest for 2 hours, and I encounter a cold mountain creek and I take off my shoes and socks and put my feet in there. There are very few things in Olam Hazeh that are as physically pleasant as that. Feet. Smelly feet, and there's stuff stuck in between your toes that gets in the water and the poor fish have to deal with it. Right, okay. Unbelievable pleasure. Okay, what else can give you unbelievable pleasure? Hopefully, sit down and learn a Maimar Chassidus and go, wow, this is just unbelievable. This is amazing. Okay, hopefully. If not, so then eat some ice cream. But, right, so you want pleasure, so eat some ice cream. But, right, okay, so I can experience very different levels of pleasure, but it's all pleasure. Okay. Now, there are also in the more physical aspect, in the more emotional aspects of us, there's also makif and in the spheres themselves. In other words, the midas are keiches panimi. Now, seichel is also a keich panimi on one level, but it's also a keich makif on the other to the extent that it's the source of the midas. Okay, so that's how you get the tzadi, lamed, mem. Tzadi Lamed Mem Tzadi is the 10 spheres, Chochma, Bina, Chochma, Bina, Zoh, the six emotional attributes, Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchus. Those 9, each incorporating in them all 10 spheres. 9 times 10 is 9. Those are the Keiches Panimi. In that sense, intellect is a keich panimi, which is true. But there's also an aspect of intellect that is not simply connected to what's below it, it's also connected to what's above it. And that's the lamed and the mem. There's chochma, bina, and das times 10, that's lamed. Keser, chochma, bina, das times 10 is the mem, that's 4. 4 times 10 and 5, okay? That's what the Alter Rebbe explains in Kiseitze. Because intellect can also be a makif to the extent that relative to midas, it's a makif. Right? I mean, it's not intellect in its purest form is objective reality. It's not my subjective reality. Right? Whereas pnimi is my subjective reality. Okay, that's midas. Right? Now, it's also true that the level of me that I have a certain control over is, I don't have control over my intellect, but I have control over what my intellect does, which is called thinking. I do have control over my thoughts, theoretically. Right? Not that it's easy, but I can. Okay. They're just these things, whoever's watching is talking here. These people are sending themselves notes, and some of them are a little bizarre. Okay. Beseda. So that's tselem, that's nefesh elokis. Right? Hine. B'shtei nefashos. In the 2 nefashos, tzarich le'es Indian shalom, there has to be this notion of peace. The hine. Nefesh elokis. Right? Now we're going to have to explain. I understand. Nefesh Elokis should be in a state of peace. It's Nefesh Elokis. No. Yes. But no. Why not? Let's see. Just like Atzilus. Because there's different levels of the Nefesh Elokis. Av Shiba Bechinas Taharahi. Even though really Neshama Shenasata be Taharahi, which is a bracha which I hope you already said today, because you should have said Birchas HaShachar before you walk in the room, certainly Birchas HaTorah, but also Birchas HaShachar in general, especially if you're eating rugalach and drinking coffee, right? So Birchas HaShachar this morning, what did we say? Neshama Elokai, Neshama Shenasata be Taharahi. What is Tahara? Comes from Eilam Atzilus. Atabarasa, you created it, came through Eilam Abriya, Tayetzarta, came to my Eilam HaYetzira, Tanafachta bi, you blew it into me in Eilam HaSiyah. The 4 different stops of the soul along its way from Atzilus into a physical body. Tahara is the Neshama Atzilus. Afshi b'bechinas Tahara, V'gam k'mei shehi bebechinas ata barasa, ata yatzarta, ata nefachta. Even on those three levels which are talking about the neshama as it passes through bria, passes through elam hayetzira, and ultimately rests in the body in elam hasiyah. Hine gam az, even there, yesh ba bechinas taharahi, the neshama is still ultimately taharahi, this neshama is elokus. Void yeser, the gam ba bechinas barasi yatzarta nefachta bi, on those three levels, yesh ba bechinas, what's the next thing we say? V'ata mishamra bekirmi, you guard it in me, which is an even higher level than Atzilus. Which makes a lot of sense based on everything that we just learned, right? What is it that could allow the neshama to stay in a pristine state, even though it's down here in all the shmutz of Elam Hazeh, a level beyond even the neshama's source in Atzilus, right? That's what's going to allow the neshama to maintain its connection to Elokus even down here. Oh, so that's what the Rebbe says. That's v'atav v'sham ukim v'shalamaylim mi bechinas taharahi, which comes from even beyond taharahi, beyond Atzilus. Lochein. Hine, gam b'shas ha'chet. Indeed, for that reason, even at the time of chet, he ba'amli to yizbarach, the neshama is still one with the Eibishter. Person doesn't aveira, so the neshama is affected by that aveira, but then that doesn't mean the neshama doesn't believe in the Eibishter at the time of that aveira. That's ridiculous. The neshama doesn't lose that belief. That belief isn't registering in the conscious reality of the person whose goof, whose body is doing that aveira, or even whose mind is doing that aveira, because the person might be thinking thoughts that are usser. Okay. Not okay, but fine. Okay, so that's what happened. So, but at that point, where's the neshama and all that? The neshama stopped believing in God? God forbid, of course not. The neshama is still connected to the Eibishter. We're going to see there is an expression of the weakness of the neshama such that that can happen in a person. Okay, but the neshama is still connected to the Eibishter at that moment, because that's the nature of the neshama. It just doesn't happen to be able at that moment to send out those signals to that in a powerful enough way that the conscious person will pick up those signals and act in accordance with those signals. So the person's acting in a way that's contrary to their essential being. So they're doing something against the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the neshama, now the neshama is affected negatively by that, and that's why it has to go through the whole process of Gehenna after it leaves Elam Hazeh, etc., to cleanse itself of all of that schmutz. Okay, but the neshama itself, at no point in time, loses its connection to the Eibishter. If you'd ask the neshama, is there a God? He'd always say yes. Mikol mokim. Nevertheless, since the neshama has come down and is now in the context of being a nivra, created thing that is part of created reality, ubefrat, particularly mitzad hislav shusa beguf and nefesh bahamis, particularly by virtue of the fact that the neshama has now been clothed in a body and a nefesh bahamis. The neshama has to deal with a goof and a nefesh bahamis, and the goof has icky stuff in between its toes, and the neshama has to deal with all this. And the nefesh bahamis might be attracted to all sorts of things that are antithetical to anything healthy and good, and it might take the goof to those places, and the nefesh elokis is clothed in there and is schlepped along to those places because it has no choice. Now, to a certain degree, the fact that you're going there is because Nefesh Elokis wasn't able to somehow illuminate powerfully enough to overcome the choice of the Nefesh Bahamis, the decision of the Nefesh Bahamis, or the desire of the Nefesh Bahamis. Choice is a bad choice of words. The desire of the Nefesh Bahamis. Okay. Again, not okay, but fine. That's the dynamic of that event. But the Nefesh Elokis still doesn't want to go there. Therefore, shayich ba, since it's clothed in the body, there it's relevant to inyan shel chisar na'or, a certain lacking of light, such that it can't affect the nefesh bahamis. The masha nefesh bahamis chayta, the Rebbe says an amazing thing here. That which the nefesh bahamis does in aveira, who mitzad chisar na'or but nefesh elokis? It's because my nefesh elokis isn't powerful enough to overcome the nefesh bahamis. What's the way? Now we understand. Where's the Rebbe going with all this? How do you give power to the Nefesh Elokis to overcome the Nefesh Bahamis?
Vayidaber.
Torah.
What?
Torah.
Torah.
Torah is Eisa Shalom. Bimreimav. Yasa Shalom. The Levites are making Shalom. Lamaila and Lamata. Right? Oh, wow. Now, that doesn't mean if I learn Torah, poof, my Yetzer Hara disappears. But it means that if I learn Torah, I'm going to have more power to overcome. I have to learn it, but think about it and learn it really, not just sit there. It's funny, not just sit there and say the words. Yes, I have to say the words, right? But I obviously have to have a connection to it and think about it, right? I can use Torah just for my own self-aggrandizement. I can use Torah and say, look, I'm smarter than you because I know more Torah. Okay, so I'm using Torah for the worst thing possible. That's also possible. Right? Nefesh Bahamis can do all sorts of things. But if I learn Torah properly and connect to Torah properly and realize what energy and what koyach the Torah is giving me and anybody else, so then it's that which is bringing about a situation where my Nefesh Elokis can affect my Nefesh Bahamis in such a way that my Nefesh Bahamis is one with my Nefesh Elokis and wants Elokus. And without Torah, I can't possibly do that. And the fact that there's a lacking in the Nefesh Elokis, who mitzad zeh she'ein elokus. It's not elokus. What does it mean it's not elokus? Meaning that the neshama, as it's clothed in the body, is bebechinas nivra. It's like a created thing. It's a holy created thing, a thing that wants elokus. But it's still a created thing. It's still limited. In its source, it's chelik elokam mimal mamish. And in reality, even that which is clothed down here is chelik elokam mimal mamish. Okay, but what do we see about created reality? What's created reality absolutely? Iyu v'chayu ichad, iyu v'garmu ichad, a state of absolute achdus that's all a Kodesh Baruch Hu. But in a revealed state, what is it? Nivra, created reality, might hide a Kodesh Baruch Hu. So to the neshama down here. In reality, in absolute terms, what is it? It's elokus, chelik elokam mimal mamish, a little piece of the Eibishter from above. But how might it express itself down here? Because of its connection to the guf and the nefesh bahamis as a nivra. Therefore, what? It might not express its shleimus. How do you connect it to its shleimus? Teach it Torah. Learn. You don't have to teach it. You learn Torah with it. V'hainu laham shichba b'chin. I'm sorry. The elokus hu shleimus dekula. Elokus is the wholeness of all. The neshama is lacking that wholeness by virtue of the fact that it can't affect the nefesh bahamis completely, and it's held to task for that. Right at the end of the person's 120 years in Eilam Hazeh, the nefesh elokis is held to task as a result of the fact that it wasn't able to completely overcome the nefesh bahamis with its or and keep the nefesh bahamis away from all of the seductive reality of Eilam Hazeh. Nefesh elokis pays the price. Has to go through a cleansing process. Whoa. Astounding. So there has to be shalom in the nefesh elokis. That's all of this was to explain that. Just like we had to explain why there has to be shalom in Atzilus. So Atzilus is elokus, Seder, but it's this level of elokus that has some aspect of tsiur, a form. Well, that 10 spheres. There's a tzimtzum of the or to be drawn down into 10 spheres, so there's something called chesed, something called gvur, and you might think even there that it's not all elokus. No. But you have to understand what Atzilus is. It's all elokus, but it's elokus in such a way that there's 10 different aspects of elokus. There's a reality of tzimtzum. So you have to bring shalom. You have to elevate that to its source, and it certainly can't. That level of reality, Atzilus can't elevate the rest of reality if it's not connected to its source above. And so that's the connection of Mal Yishol Maila, beyond Atzilus into Atzilus, from Hal Shamata Atzilus into Bia. So too with the Neshama, the connection of Neshama to its source, and then the ability of Neshama to affect the Nefesh Bahamis. And let's just turn the page, and we'll get the last page. We have one more Shiur before we break for Shavuos, because I'm not here Monday morning, and it'll be a couple of days after Shavuos I'm also not here. הנה, לזה צריך לעשות שלום בנפש אלוקis. והיינו להמשיך בה בכינס עצם הנשמה. It's not the Rebbe finally says it. I mean, we knew this is where we're going, but to draw down into the neshama, its source to etzem, to the essence of the soul. And what is the essence of the soul? As it is rooted in the essence of the Kadosh Baruch. Let's turn the page for psychological reasons. For shalom b'nefesh habahamis, therefore, once there's shalom in the nefesh elokis, so then we can bring about shalom lamata. For malia shel maila is etzem and neshama shine. You can't say etzem and neshama shines in because it's not or. Etzem and neshama is revealed in the nefesh elokis. Then the nefesh elokis can affect the nefesh habahamis. The nefesh habahamis ha'elezu bilvad sheshayich bechisarim. Not only is it relevant to the notion of lacking, it can actually do an aveira. You have to bring it to a state of shalom, a state of wholeness, a state of connection to what it's really all about. Okay, we'll continue Sunday. What does that mean? You have to connect the nefesh habahamis to nefesh elokis. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that at length as to what a Veda is, and then we'll finish the mimer. But Hashem will actually, it works out well. Bezrat Hashem will finish the mimer. But now the rest of the mimer is not as difficult as this little piece we just finished. Okay. I don't know what is with this thing.